And welcome back to Team G503 here on YouTube for Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts. Been doing a series on wiring our 1943 Willys MB. I almost said Willys. Oh man, you better cut the camera. No, don't do that. 1943 Willys MB. And in this video, I'm going to be installing the cables that go from the starter and the battery to the floor switch there on the tub. Now, I used some of the original video from when I drove the chassis and I initially wired that up. I didn't undo everything. I just wanted to kind of put that, insert that in there. So that is from back then, in case you're wondering why some of the things aren't on the Jeep there. That's why. But I think you'll enjoy this. It's kind of a cool video, and you get all those hooked up together in the way they're supposed to be, and they just look pretty and they work fantastically. So let's just dive right in. Got my two leads here, or cables. We've got a short one, and that one will connect from the starter switch to the actual nub on the starter here, or the post on the starter. And then we've got the longer one, which will connect with this end to the positive side of the battery. Now, if you look at these cables, they're really nice and heavy. They've got great connections on the back and all the rubber where it should be to protect, and the loom to protect the wire itself. Do not cheat yourself in a 6-volt system and try using cheap cables or thin cables, because you will be disappointed. Before I install these cables, I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper, a nice coarse piece of sandpaper, and even though these are new, I'm still going to go ahead and scuff both sides of the connector, just so I know I've got a nice, clean, and bright connection. See, I've just scuffed up a little bit here, and I am going to scuff it on the opposite side as well. Just go ahead and do that on all your connectors on these cables. Notice here on our starter post, you've got a nut at the top, and you've got this lock washer that's in between the two. Now, that's the way it would have came back in the 1940s. I'm going to do something a little different here just to get a little bit better of a connection. If you want to use that lock washer, it should be fine. I'm going to use a couple of external star washers. They seem to get a little bit better of a bite. Now, you don't have to do that, but again, I think it's just a little bit better of a connection in these critical areas here. We want to get good electricity flow, and we want this starter to pop right off every time, and that seems to be an issue sometimes, is this coming loose. So let's take that off and put some external star washers on it. The post on the new starter here is fairly clean, but again, we're going to go ahead and just take a wire brush and just scuff this up just a little bit, just to make sure we get some good contact. You want everything clean. I believe the wording that was told to me a long time ago with electrical connections is tight and bright. You want everything tight and you want everything bright and shiny to make a good connection. So just clean this up a little bit. Got a couple of these external star washers, and again, they just seem to, those little teeth just seem to bite in, and they hold, and they make a really good electrical connection. These are 5/16, so I'm going to put one on the bottom. We take the short lead, and if you notice, I'm holding it just in my hand, and the one side would be flat to my finger, and if you roll to the other end, you'll see that that's turned at a 45-degree angle. That is so when you connect it to the starter post, that will be bent almost perfectly to connect to your floor switch with relative ease. So again, we're going to orient this on here like this. Remember, we scuffed these all up. I'm going to put another star washer on top of there, and then I'm going to install the nut. I'll snug those down with a 9/16" wrench. As you see, as I'm tightening this down here, I'm just holding it with my hand to keep it in this spot, but you can see those star washers are actually digging into the brass, and that's exactly what I want. I want a fantastic, tight, nice connection there. That's all nice and tight. Now, I'm not using any dielectric grease on these fittings. Dielectric grease is an insulator. It does not promote the flow of electricity, and I know there'll be some argument on that, but that is indeed the case. There are greases out there that will promote the travel or the current electricity. Dielectric grease is not one of them, so we're just going to use this to metal to metal. Okay, now we're going to fast forward back to when the tub is installed here. You see I've got my starter switch that's been installed onto the tub. If you look back in the video series, you will see where that was installed. And I've loosened up that short lead there on the starter, and I've removed the long one here. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean those connections off again with the sandpaper, just so they're nice and shiny, and make a good connection as I reconnect this. Let's take a look here again. We got this 45-degree bend that I talked about earlier in the video, and I'm going to bend that underneath, and I'm going to connect it to the lower post of the starter switch. I'll take the camera back down here and see if I can get you a really nice shot of that post that's on the bottom there and how that connector does flatly go up against there. What I did now is I've just installed the lock washer and the nut back on the starter switch, and I've tightened that down, and then I'll come back to this fitting and I'll tighten that down as well, and then that one will be installed. Next, we'll move on to the larger of the two cables. This is the one that goes from the battery to the top there, post on the floor switch, and I'll show you how to connect that one. We'll go ahead and put a little bend here in our wire, and then we'll push that flat side of the connector against that post just like we did the other one. Now before we tighten this down, we're going to need part number A5078. That's the wire that goes from the filterette to the battery terminal on the starter switch. And you see here it's black with 3 tracers, and it's got this special connector on the end here, and that's the one that's going to fasten as well to that top post on the starter switch. I'm just going to install it round side down, as I will call it. I'll show you a little close up here of what I mean before I reinstall the lock washer and the nut on that top post. Show you here I've got it all tightened down, and that's the configuration that you want to use. And then we're going to take that other end of the lead, and we're going to go through the grommet there that's behind the oil filter bracket and just simply slip it in there for the time being. Again, these color-coded wires make it really easy when we got a wire underneath the dash, but that's going to connect to the filterette, and I will show you that in a future video. Our next step is going to be to connect the 2 clips that will hold these in place, and I'm using the Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts MB clip set, and you see here I've got these 2 clips, and they're number 9 on the list, and you just match up the clip to the picture that's on the sheet that comes with the whole set, and then that way you'll know you're using them in the right position. I also purchased separately some 10 24 by 3/4 inch length screws, and those are going to be used to connect these 2 brackets together in a way that will hold both of those wires and the heavy gauge wires there in nice neat order. I'm installing that first one about 4 inches in, and then I'll install the second one upside down. I'm using the long tails back towards me. So I've got this one folded forward now. Don't get confused by the video. As you see, I've got that bend away from me here, and then I've folded that flat side back. You'll want to line the holes up and then connect those with that 1024 screw, and you'll want to use a lock washer and a nut. Make sure your wires are kind of nice and parallel like I'm showing you here, and then tighten everything down, and then we can connect the battery lead to the battery terminal. And with that, we are one step closer to having our wiring completed on our 1943 Willys MB. Want to give a big shout out now to the Joe's Motor Pool guys over there at Weston-super-Mare. These components that you have provided, and I am using the little switches and all the little light switches and the floor switches, they are top quality and they're fantastic. I have no issues with them. I do have a little experience with this because I used some of the lesser ones on the CJ2A and wound up having to replace them 2 or 3 times. I've got Joe's Motor Pool parts in that also, and now I have no issues. They are carried by, as well as everything else that I've been using in the 1943 project here on YouTube. All the things from start to finish have been provided by Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts, and that, of course, the website. You can buy everything I'm showing you at www.rfjp.com. One more step closer. We're going to keep going with this. Now, the next video I've got for you is going to be installing the fenders. I'm actually showing this as I completed it and the things that I did step by step. So it's not exactly in chronological order yet for the electrical components. When I'm all done with the electrical components, I'm going to combine those, or I'm going to attempt to combine those into one full-length video that will probably be really long, but it'll just show you the electrical components because a lot of guys want to kind of maybe do their Jeep that's already been assembled. All right, till next time, which will be the fender video. Got some good ones coming out for you. Glad to be back in Charleston, South Carolina after being out there in Oregon. Fantastic. Can't wait to see you guys again. I will close my mouth now. Hope you enjoyed the video. Till next time, my friends, you know the deal. Keep it safe. Happy Jeeping.